Well, for over 13 years, I've been dealing with the Canadian and the United States government agencies, federal government agencies. Um, it started out with me sharing about, starting from the beginning, which was in my childhood, and talking about what happened there. First of all, I had never heard of the term human trafficking. That was something new for me. Um, I have a lot of recall, of course, of the events that happened throughout my life, but I didn't know, I'd never heard that term before. So in 2007 is when the RCMP identified me and my child. First of all, they identified my child's kidnapping, and then through a series of questions that they had asked me, that's when they identified the human trafficking and said this is a international human trafficking investigation. So yeah, I before that though I could tell you about all the abuses that had happened to me.
Yeah,
Um,
we can get into that. I guess you've brought up a couple things there. One is that this is international trafficking. And so my first question is, this wasn't just something that happened in British Columbia or Ontario. You were
no,
moved around in different
yes,
places.
I
We
was
could ask that
trafficked.
question. And then the second one was you brought up your son. So if you could provide some clarity on those 2 points, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, basically, okay. So we were. He fled with us to Ottawa. The abuse, the trafficking didn't stop. Others were coming into the home. I was being basically handed off to different organized crime groups, such as one was a biker gang. I began running away from home as soon as I was able to. So I was on or about maybe 12, 13 years old. I started running.
Wow.
And on the street, I was also snatched up off the street by various groups of individuals. I
So it's as
was
if they were tracking you. Even if you would try to run away, they would come and find you.
absolutely, yeah. I was brought out of province when I was 13 years old to Montreal by a group of traffickers, and I was passed off or sold to another group in Montreal and left there. And I got out of that situation, but I was just snatched back up as soon as I got back to Ottawa. Um, so it went on, and I did. I tried many times to escape from these individuals throughout my life. Since as young as I can remember, I dreamed, I fantasized and dreamed of being able, as soon as I was able, to run, to escape. So I did the majority of my life, I did a lot of running. I ran and I ran and I ran. I ran from various groups. I tried to escape off and on the majority of my life. And yes, there, from my own personal experience, um, they'll never let you go. They'll always find you. I have had individuals hire private investigators to find me. And because the individuals within this ring, because they are all connected and interconnected throughout the provinces of Canada into the United States and abroad, these traffickers are. It doesn't matter where you run or where you go. They brought me to a club, um, which I later found out was a club that is used by the traffickers. It's one of their clubs. That's where they brought me. And it was very dark, and there were only two men standing in a corner in the dark, just staring at me, watching me. And she would bring me out on the dance floor and have me dance around. And then I went to go to the bathroom, and one of the guys grabbed me on my way to the bathroom. these were two traffickers. They're not just sex traffickers, but they're also very tied in with Asian mob and drug trafficking throughout Vancouver, throughout the provinces in Canada, and into the US and abroad, trafficking women, trafficking girls, trafficking drugs. So this is where I was brought. So basically, I was brought right back in to what I was running to escape from. And this happened time and time and time again. And these individuals were also tied in with the group in Montreal who had beat me and who were trafficking me when I was 13 years old. They
That's
were
just,
tied.
yeah, it's
So,
unimaginable to so many people.
well, this is how connected they
Is
are,
how
though.
connected, yes.
How connected they
You
are.
mentioned even in the last conversation we had that there were police involved in the ring.
Yes.
There were judges. Like, could you give us what you feel is the level of um, the people that are involved in this network? Like, you don't have to name any names, but just in general.
Yeah, in my case, there's the involvement of a lot of corrupt government officials, people in positions of leadership, power, authority, and trust, uh, people in within the church. Um, Knights of Columbus are some of them, and others. Lawyers, doctors, police officers, politicians. There was a diplomat in Ottawa, um, and other different positions of leadership, authority, and trust. Yes.
And I bring that up just because if I think back to, the work of people like former FBI Director Ted Gunderson, who was exposing this back in the 80s and 90s, and many others. We think about the headlines right now with what's going on with Epstein, this island, the Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, some of these people who are coming into even the mainstream media now. There's even documentaries being made about it, and you think of the testimony that has come from so many about these kinds of horrible, horrible things, this underworld, if you will, an underground world that people aren't aware of. I think we're, as a civilization, as a human family, we're getting more information coming out now more than ever about just how pervasive and connected this is. So for you to have direct experience with that is it's
Yes.
it's incredible, and it's important, and that's why I salute your courage. I can only imagine what it must be like to recall all of this. Was there
Well, the,
anything more you wanted to say on that before we move on to some of the more specific experiences?
yeah, the majority of my experiences involved people in those types of positions. When I was, for example, when I was 13 in Montreal, and I was being brought to hotel rooms by the traffickers, knock on the hotel room door, and a businessman would open the door and they would make their exchange of money. He would pay them and they'd put me inside. And I remember this one in particular. And this guy he could have been a lawyer, a doctor, a police officer. He was in a suit, a really nice suit, businessman, probably had a family, children at home. And I took a chance and I asked him, I begged him to please help me. And this man, as he was forcing himself on top of me, was promising me, I will help you. I will help you.
That's
And
terrible.
he never did. He never did. What he did is, I guess he ended up telling the traffickers about it, that I was opening my mouth, I'm a problem, I'm whatever. And I ended up getting beat for that. So the majority of people who are involved in this ring are people in those types of positions.